Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Tony Riley. Hey, Tony, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am very, very well. I'm excited to talk with you. We're going to be talking to Tony about his business, the MX Group. He is the president and CEO of the MX Group, which is the B2B marketing agency of the year. Congratulations to that. But before we get into the whole MX Group story, Tony, tell us a little bit about your background and your career.
All right, fair enough. I think I have somewhat of a unique story. I grew up in the advertising business. So my father started an ad agency about 30 years ago. And for most of my life, we couldn't afford an agency and a home. So we lived in the agency. We would be upstairs and the business was downstairs. And, my father's a creative. And so I kind of fell in love with the business and, the passion that he had for it. Of course, like most, high schoolers, I tried to get as far away from what my parents wanted me to do as possible. And so instead of going into advertising, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, and I proudly served as a United States Marine for 5 years, did 2 tours overseas. And as you can see, I'm a very proud veteran today. But I think that was a pivotal moment in my career because the work ethic, the discipline, the drive that you gain from being a United States Marine, and you combine that with kind of the passion and energy that I grew up with around the creative space, the advertising industry, led me to want to pursue a career in that. And so after the Marine Corps, I got into the agency business. And since then, it's been a little bit of a tour with some small agencies, and then growing up a little bit at the MX Group before I went down and worked for one of the big holding companies. And most recently, I'm back here at the MX Group and just went through a leadership transition as we transitioned out the founding partners that have been with us for the last 30 years and serving the role of president and CEO.
That's great. And the MX Group, Tony, tell me more about really kind of how it sounds like it's evolved a lot in the recent past, but also tell me a little bit about your experience and what you guys are focused on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So the MX Group is a pure play business to business advertising and marketing agency. And so unlike a lot of the other players in the space that dabble in consumer advertising, the stuff we see on TV all the time, we are dedicated and passionate around the business space and helping sell and provide marketing services from one business to another. And it's been a really interesting space over the last couple of years. We learned something very valuable from our friends in the consumer side and realized that when people come to the office, they don't turn into robots, that you can only reach through one form of trade medium or through very dry and rational, explanations of products. Mm-hmm. And so there's been a whole revolution in the B2B space over the last couple of years where we're now bringing in a lot more creativity. We're bringing a lot more innovation to the table. There's a lot more advertising spend in the space now as big enterprise Fortune 500 brands are doubling down on business to business. Man, I don't know if you knew this, but I saw the stat the other day. 70% of businesses in the United States of America primarily serve other businesses. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have known that or wouldn't have thought about that, but it just kind of puts a shape around how big the industry is. And the MX Group has been fortunate because for a long time, B2B was kind of the uncool part of the advertising ecosystem. And now it's one of the fastest growing and most prolific. We believe that the brands of the future are no longer designer shoes and software drinks. We think they're, cybersecurity software and infrastructure and energy. And so we help bring those brands to market and really put them in touch with their customers.
That's great, Tony. I do feel that the B2B businesses, B2B agencies have always perhaps been misunderstood. The reality is that performance was always important in the B2B space.
Yes.
Right. So as the world has become more performance driven, in some ways it's kind of come to you and you guys can lead the charge in a very effective way. But, let's talk about really what's happening in that B2B landscape. What does it look like right now in the marketplace? Where are you seeing kind of opportunities and where are folks having some challenges?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is the agency landscape is changing a lot in the sense that now, because of all the growth and the B2B side, there's a ton of consolidation. I mean, a lot of private equity money coming in the space, buying up a lot of these agencies, really doing what happened on the consumer side of the business, over the last, whatever decades. And so we're seeing a lot of growth and growth of agencies that can service a global client. I think the most interesting thing to me is because as people, we've become more and more focused on the impact of the things that we're buying and how that impact is made on the world around us. How services and technology can enable modern working and hybrid working. The consumers are more and more interested in the business brands of the future. What are the brands that are going to build the platforms, supply the energy and the infrastructure that we're all going to live in for the future? And as a result, you're seeing B2B brands shoot up in the charts this year. The Future Brands Index was published just recently, and 4 out of the top 5 brands are now B2B brands. And Apple fell from number 1 to number 7. I think people know that they can count on the next camera being better than the last, and what they can't count on is how that product or service they're buying is going to impact the future generations. And so we're seeing a lot of growth and proliferation around brand marketing and the importance of brand for businesses. And then, matched with your point, which is very astute, we balance that as the MX group with the performance of the marketing. And so we think that there's a lot of interest in really balancing those two scales. How can you make a brand resonate, but how can you also then manage that with a more performance mindset when you're selling through distributors, large sales teams, and through very complicated sales cycles? Some of the products we sell are, $500,000 or more in purchase price. And so that brings with it a lot of scrutiny.
In the B2B space, I just would be curious, do you find that your customers align their sales teams more closely with your activities than perhaps maybe a more traditional advertiser might do with marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just inherent in the type of marketing we're doing. If we're working with a Fortune 500 manufacturing organization, they might have 10, 15,000 person sales organizations. And so our ability to influence the customer is most readily available through those sales teams. And so just by the nature of what we're trying to do, we have to have tight alignment with the sales organizations because they are our easiest point of communication to that end customer.
And are you guys implementing a lot of different, or do you guys have a preferred like CRM system that you guys use?
We try to remain platform agnostic
Yeah.
in the CRM, CMS, and sales tech side of the house. Solution dependent, platform agnostic. There's so many different technologies that are out there today that it's hard to just double down on one. And we're finding that marketers are more and more often bringing the executional skill sets in house, and where we can really serve them is by the strategic work and making sure that what's done into the piping is in line with the strategies we set forth.
Yeah, no, it's a really good observation. I mean, they do seem to be bringing a lot of that stuff in. I think there still seems to be a lot of challenges in terms of some of the systems and making them perform. And so you really do need kind of an agency still to make the most of that. So it completely makes sense. Well, let me switch gears a little bit,
Okay.
Tony. And here you are, you find yourself as the president and CEO of the Agency of the Year for B2B marketing at the MX Group. What gives you the most joy from what you're doing?
The opportunities. I mean, we are a people business, right? Our product is the collective skill sets and capabilities of the people that we have in the building. And the joy that I see right now is as we're growing as an organization, we are able to give bigger opportunities to all the people that are at the MX Group.
Yeah,
You work with bigger brands, you get bigger canvas to play with,
yeah.
and that kind of opportunity, and you bring in more work. It creates more growth in terms of platforms and other people that they can work with and the skills that they can develop. And so I guess to answer your question specifically, what gets me most excited is the growth of our organization is providing a lot of opportunities for our people to do even better work than they have ever done in the past.
That's great. That's great. And I mean, here we are at the early part of 2023, looking out for this year. What's on the docket for the MX Group, but also what's on the docket for the B2B industry?
Good question. So yeah, our vision is to become the best B2B agency in the country. And so we have a very lofty goal. What we're working on this year is really increasing our accountability throughout our organization. We've grown so much and we're now in a more hybrid way of working that it's important that we all understand what we're responsible for. And so we've doubled down on just accountability and responsibility. And then really increasing the proactivity. I think marketers this year are going to need more proactive ideas from agencies than they ever have. And that's the output of the fact that there's been more turnover in clients than I've ever seen. I've never had as many client-side marketers move places. And what you're left with is new marketers coming into role. They don't have the history of where things have been and where things are going. And they're going to need their agency partners more than ever that understand their business deeply to help paint a picture for where they can do and what they can do and solve their challenges. So for us, we're going to really double down on proactivity and then, continue our path to become the best.
Yeah, I think that's such a good observation, Tony. As we look into a year where people are keeping their eye on the economy and how things are evolving, certainly we've seen a lot of staffing changes at customers across the board. And that's really, I think, what you're alluding to. And it's an interesting one because on one level, people get nervous as to what that means, for their existing relationships as marketers. But the reality is that generally speaking, when that happens, it's good for agencies. You become literally the glue that holds it all together. And hopefully people see that also as an opportunity to let you guys add more value and maybe scale a bit. Well, Tony, it's been great chatting with you. If someone wanted to learn more about the MX Group, where should they go?
You can go to themxgroup.com or visit my LinkedIn profile and message me directly. But either way, you can find us pretty easily online, or just search best B2B agencies in the country and you'll find us as one of the top of the list.
Well, I love your personal story. I love the fact that you grew up living inside of an advertising agency, which is so awesome. And certainly also, I love the Marine Corps background as well, because my personal experience with advertising and marketing success is really exactly kind of what you alluded to. It's that structure and that routine and that teamwork and that integrity that really kind of makes it all come together. And so really sounds like you guys have a good team building and, big things are expected for the MX Group here, Tony. Thank you so much for being on the Uncaged show today, and we look forward to having you back.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate what you're doing.
Cheers.